Everybody, Invisiblekatana here, doing my review for The Last of Us Episode 2, Infected. As you can see, I got my Detroit stuff on. I always have to represent my hometown whenever anybody's like, yeah, I know where Detroit is. I'm like, sweet. Horror franchises seem to love Detroit. For whatever reason, they decided Detroit was Raccoon City in the Resident Evil live action movies, and that's legit. They blew up Detroit with a nuke, so it's like Detroit is Raccoon City. I don't know how I feel about that, but it's like, it's kind of a reference. And this was a good one too. It's like, okay, that's cool. They know where Detroit is. Great episode. Of course, this was the one where it's like, all right, we see the clickers. How's that going to pan out? It was great. The way that they handled it was really well done. I'll start from the beginning. And I guess I'll kind of do this like my movie review. So there will be like video game spoilers, or at least comparisons, I guess, towards the end of this review, just in case you don't want anything spoiled game wise, and definitely not anything, later in the story. But love the episode. The beginning, I think, is honestly, but I'd say maybe the second scariest part. They had some really great moments during the end segment, but the way they handle the introduction of the virus, especially, in the first episode, I was like, wow, them just being like, what if the earth heats, global warming and stuff being the thing that triggers it. I was like, they didn't say that in the game. I never thought about like, oh, well, the earth heats up and boom, cordyceps. And I was like, huh. And when they said it in the first episode, I was like, I didn't have that on my mind for like the last 10 years since I first played that game, because it was just like, oh yeah, they go from the plant to the things. But I was like, that's crazy. And then all he had to do was say like, what if the earth heats up? And I was like, oh crap, this might actually still be real. I was worried back then, like kind of, but now I was like, oh, that's not good. But another great introduction. Fortunately, this one didn't freak me out a little bit. It's already, it's already been done. But I love the way they handled this one. And it was like, all right, we got to see what happened in Jakarta, or at least, like the very first instance of it. And we actually see the difference between the spores and the tendrils. And I love the way it was handled. I thought it was really interesting that we actually see the spores, like they just wiggle out as they're really like tentacles. I was like, that's really cool. They did the ending, which was less cool, and we'll get to that when we get to it. But it was like, well, the tendrils actually move. Like when she cut the lady's leg open, it was just like nothing happened. It just split open, and it was just like, what's this just white chunk? It looked like a worm was in there. And I was like, this is cool. I like the way it's handled. It was super gross when she actually pulled them out. I thought for sure, I was like, oh, this is how it spreads, because she's gonna get bit, or it's gonna like prick her finger or something, and then it's all over from there. But she just pulls it out, and it's still wiggling, and she's like, oh, well, that's it. It's over. She gets that little extra bit of info. It's like, well, like this person bit this person. Like, well, who bit her? It's like, we don't know. And then there's like 14 other people missing. It's like, well, we need you for like a vaccine or medicine. And she's just like, speaking of Raccoon City, just start dropping bombs, because that's it. Like, kill everybody. Like, she was so serious. She was like, I'm telling you this now, and the first thing I need to do is just like, I just want to be with my family, because I know you're gonna have to kill all of us, and that's the only answer. I was like, well, that's a dark opening. It was definitely entertaining to watch. I was like, wow, that's, it adds to the intensity of that whole situation. And they even reference it later where they talk about how bombing actually worked in some places, but not so well in most places, and that's just how it went. So I like the way they kind of did that little callback there. Of course, all the characters are great. Obviously, once again, getting to the end, we'll talk about Tess. But once again, love the way it was handled. All the characters, all the actors seem like the characters, from the game. Was like slightly different. They have like those little subtle nods as they're kind of going through the episode. This is definitely, especially by the end, this was the moment where it's officially, I'm very curious. For this is the type of show I want to go online for, because it's like, how do people feel who haven't played the game? It's like, all right, who's invested right now that isn't like, okay, I'm really excited. I like the story of the game. I think they're doing a great job with the show. I want to see that continuation. But for someone who has like nothing from the game, I'm curious how attached they are, or how curious they are, considering they don't even have a clue what's coming up. It could be literally anything, but we know what we should expect, for better or for worse. And it's like, okay, let's see how it happens. So I would assume they're doing a great job, not just from the insane records they beat for the first episode, but the way this was handled, just like the first episode, honestly, incredibly well done. Like, the additions that aren't in the game are very cool. Probably my favorite thing, honestly, being away from Joel is like one of my favorite things. I was like, I didn't think I'd care or, enjoy it, that much, where it's just like, look, yeah. And I mentioned in my first review, same thing. You stick with Joel. It's his experience. You're like hunkered down to him as a character. And in this is like, all right, let's see what other people do. you know, love this person, love that person. Here's what this person did. Here's someone that will never show up again because she said kill everyone here, including me and my family. So it's just seeing what's happening in the world, and it's really interesting. So I like the way that that's been handled so far. I'm very curious if that's going to be every single episode is going to be a flashback, which if they do that, maybe it's potentially when they get to, well, you know what? We'll save this episode. I'll get to this in spoilers because here come those comparisons. Really love the episode. Obviously, I would recommend playing the game. I think it's a fun game. I personally am one of the, I always feel like the odd man out. I actually like the second one more. I know how that goes, but hey, I enjoyed it. I like both games, but I have more of an attachment to 2. But I like the first one as well, and I'm excited to see where they go. So really enjoy it. I'm gonna get like comparisons and all this stuff. When it comes to flash forwards, I think they're gonna save Left Behind either for winter, maybe like right after she gets captured, or maybe, well, I guess it depends on how they really do the episode, because they could do it where it ends with Joel passing out, and then it starts, and that's when we get Left Behind, and it works perfectly because I think technically in the span of the game that's exactly where that happens. So they could do it like that, and the flashback actually is just Left Behind. Maybe they'll just do it, instead of it being like, you know, the intro where it's like maybe 5 minutes, it'll be like the first 15 minutes of the episode, and then they do like one of those super late intros. That would actually be really cool. Or they could just flat out save it for the very last episode. I highly doubt they'll do it. I think it's something that they'll introduce in the middle, because it does actually fit during like that big turning point in the story, which, you know, initially we don't get that, and it's just, holy crap, you're playing as Ellie. But as far as the story is concerned, you know, just watching and, you know, especially not knowing anything, I think it would be really interesting if it really fit right in that space, because it would go from, especially for people that don't know, they'll just be like, what the F, we're spending like 15 minutes and we have no, you know, no idea what happened to Joel. And then it cuts to Ellie, and then maybe that episode ends with David, and it's just like, oh crap, like just instantly. And they can make it a super long episode. The first one was 1 hour and 20 minutes. They can easily do 1 hour 20, you know, like, or a full 30 minutes and then another full hour after the flashback. It might happen in winter. I think it'll be kind of like their mid-season finale sort of situation, or maybe mid-season premiere, I guess. But that's what I'm thinking so far. I would love to know your thoughts on where you guys think that might end up, where they officially do it. Of course, it was referenced in the first episode. They mentioned Riley. This was, of course, referencing going to the mall in Left Behind, but it was just like, you know, Ellie, of course, you know, kept it to herself, where it was like, yeah, it was just me. So I'm excited to see where that ends up at. Just in general, obviously, I'm excited to see how they keep some things, change other things. I mean, we got like an actual reload sequence. He was like pressed up against the wall and stuff. Like, I love that whole segment, especially the part where he was just talking. Like, this was a great episode for that, where you really understand Joel and Tess, which unfortunately ends, you know, with her dying at the end of this one. But we see how capable they are. Like, they reference it in both dialogue and action, because Ellie was like, hey, have you killed any? It's like, yeah, I killed a bunch. And it was just like that, like, okay, this dude, it's been, you know, this many years, it's been, you know, 20 years. And then it kind of instantly ingrains you, where it's like, you know, in video games, you're kind of just like, yeah, you explain it, I'm gonna do cool action stuff. But when you watch it in the show, it has to be like, all right, what are the moments where I believe that person can do it? Because when it's just me playing the game, it's like, yeah, I can do that. So of course it's gonna happen. But it's just Joel at this point. It's not us and Joel. It's just like, let's see what he can do. And so it's like, yeah, killed a bunch, just blank. And then, you know, a couple of segments where it's like, you know, he was checking out the truck by himself. Like, you know, I can do this. It'll, you know, protect them a bit. And then obviously at the very end, where it was just like, they were doing it. It was like, we have to be silent, like not quiet, silent. I really enjoyed that part. And it was good. And they did the most video game thing I've ever seen in live action. And I was like, this is if there's ever a claim to The Last of Us potentially being the greatest video game adaptation ever created. They walked into the final room of the episode, and the way closed behind them, it just crumbled. And it was like, well, I guess we're trapped here. And I was like, that is the most live action checkpoint thing I've ever experienced in my life. And I was like, they got it. This is the adaptation. That was it. It's like, they can't turn back. Video games. So I loved it. I don't know why, but as soon as it happened, I was just like, that's the moment. That is the most video game thing that has ever happened in live action to me. Because I was like, they can't turn back. But that was funny. I ultimately really enjoyed it though. The action was great. It was utter chaos, which I thought was really cool. It was like, it started off stealth, and then, hey, let's face it, that's how we play the game. There are those really sweet YouTube videos, and then there's the rest of us where it's like, I got 2 of them for sure, and then I threw a brick when I meant to like snipe somebody. that's my bad. And then, you know, you just fight your way out. So love the way they handled that. And it was like, yeah, that is realistic. I did that too, all the time. Man, if this was Uncharted, I'd be like, yeah, I just couldn't get stealth in that game ever. I was like, I don't know how it works here. But love the episode, of course. We'd love to know what you guys thought about it. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. Because I'm horrible at this, I've never done it. But shameless plug, I do stream on the weekdays. So check out my channel. It's in the description. Got a bunch of old stuff you guys can check out. Got clips on here. A couple of the streams have been re-uploaded. I think there's only like maybe 2 or 3 that haven't been put on this channel because they're like super long streams. And also they were like either chill streams where it was no face cam or straight from the PlayStation. But mostly you guys end up seeing my face for better or for worse. But definitely check out my channels, check out my clips if you guys are interested. I'd really appreciate it. But definitely want to know how you guys are feeling about episode 2 of The Last of Us. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.
You hungry? I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. You hungry? Yeah, I'm hungry. Like I'm hungry. I'm hungry. Like I'm Shaggy. Man, I'm hungry. Man, I'm hungry. I'm hungry. Yeah, man. You hungry? Yeah.